cyclist. And it's a thrill. I mean, it's such an honor to have you, Derica, here. Let's hear from just some of the other club member or other folks from other clubs. So I heard we have Rich from the Oakland Yellow Jackets. Rich, do you want to do a quick intro? Say hi.
Rich, you're on mute.
I'm Rich Arita from the Oakland Yellow Jacket. I'm a VP. I am also a member of the Grizzly Peak. I typically ride on Wednesdays. I see a couple of people here, Felice and Fred McMillan of the Yellow Jacket here. Let the other people introduce themselves.
Fantastic.
Hi, I'm Felice Hill. I'm with Oakland Yellow Jackets. I've been with the club about 9 years, I guess. And I participated as a volunteer for administration.
Well, welcome, welcome.
Hi, I'm Fred McWilliams. I'm a past president of the Oakland Yellow Jackets. I now live in Houston, but I'm back and forth to California and ride with the Jackets whenever I can.
Excellent, terrific.
Rob Williams, formerly from El Cerrito. I'm now the chairperson of the Motherload Bike Coalition and outreach manager for CalBike, the California Bicycle Coalition.
Fantastic. Oh, I'm glad you joined us.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
I'll go. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
After you, Mr. Smith.
Oh, thank you. My name is Paul Smith. I'm with the Marin Cyclists, and I'm the ride director of the Marin Century.
Fantastic. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you.
And then Aaliyah, welcome. We're going to do interest of you and Derek in just a moment. Any other bike club folks?
Yeah, my name is Adele. I'm from GPC, Valley Spokesman, and FFBC, and I'm at work right now. And so I'm going to be here until I can't be here. So,
okay.
All right.
Well, welcome. Welcome.
My name is Dan Leverton. I'm with Berkeley Bike Club, but I also have memberships with the GPC and Marin and Santa Cruz and, whatever other club I can join. And it's good to see Derica. I communicate with her by email, and she set me up with an opportunity to get a special NAACP jersey, which I have on today.
Very nice.
And,
I was looking for one of those. That means I have to be nice to Derica then, huh?
It's worth the night to teach us.
All right. Cool. All right. Anyone else?
I'll just say I'm Larry Warbaugh. I'm with Berkeley Bicycle Club, also just a interested member. Derek, I'd heard a couple of your podcasts on Velo News, and so I was kind of interested in hearing from you firsthand and a little bit of what you all have been doing. It's exciting stuff. So
Fantastic.
Thanks for putting this on. And Michael, thanks for putting this on.
You betcha. I'm glad you all are here. Okay. Well, let me do a quick intro. I think, the Velo News segue is perfect because I've heard Derica on Velo News a couple of times. I know she was in the print and recently on the web editions, and I can't tell you how inspired. I mean, that's a genuine inspiration. And listening to how she and the Major Taylor Bike Club have really incorporated the spirit of generosity and inclusion in their organization, and I just hope that can be a model for other clubs, for GPC in particular, but for all the clubs represented. I think it really is a model of to make people feel really warm, welcomed, and want to come back. And I was genuinely moved by what I had heard and extended the invitation. And Derica was very gracious and agreed to join us. And she has brought in Aaliyah Tyus Barnwell. And I just noticed she's the recruitment director for Major Taylor Iron Riders, and she's the founder of rideupgrades.org. And I'm sure she'll describe more about it, but making the rounds in the GPC email channel this past week was an article from Bicycling Magazine, and there was a picture of Aaliyah in there. So that's pretty cool. So we have two really noteworthy speakers. So without further ado, Derica, why don't I turn it over to you? Thank you again for joining us.
Well, I don't know how I can keep going with an intro like that. Thank you very much. And to everyone else in the new modern age, it's nice to meet you all on Zoom. This is the way we're getting introductions to new people these days. I want to thank Aaliyah for joining me because she has an amazing voice. That she's done so much work in New York City with just getting kids on bikes and just broadening the horizons on people of color and just spreading the word. So she's done a phenomenal job, and I thought she would have an amazing voice and point of view to contribute to the conversation with you guys tonight, or this afternoon for us that's on the West Coast. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. And I initially had, when Michael initially called me, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what he was looking for or, what it was. And I was pretty clear that I said, I don't have a list of instructions on how to be, diverse or inclusive. It's just kind of like, it's just a thing that you do. It's within you and your clubs. But I figured, the one thing that I can say that people of color always, said in our own circles is that, if we could just have an open conversation and just be open with one another and speak freely, then I think a lot of those myths and stereotypes will be dispelled. And so I agreed. I said, well, we always want to have a conversation, so let's get down to it. Right. So if you guys are okay with the open platform, I'm totally down for it. I do want this to be an organic thing. I do have a presentation, which is totally not my style. Like, I didn't want to do it, but Michael said that PowerPoints and presentations work well, so I got lots of pictures to show, and we can just have an organic, free-flowing thing. And feel free to jump in if anybody has any questions or comments or anything. I'm really easygoing about it, and I think Aaliyah's pretty easygoing too. Aaliyah, do you want to chime in a little bit before we get started?
Oh no, I'm just happy to be here. It seems like you guys are doing great. Obviously, I asked around about you before I came into the meeting, and all I hear is that you guys like to climb. So got plenty of questions, but they're all the innocent variety, and I'd love to hear more about your recruitment process, because until we know what that's already like, I feel like we can't really offer you that many helpful suggestions. Right?
Yeah. So you did pose a really good question, which is, since Michael's turned over to me, I want to turn back to you guys. Anybody can just hop in and popcorn in. Like, what are your recruitment efforts, or what is the goal that you guys are looking to achieve here? And that'll kind of guide us where we're going to go, and I can share the PowerPoint and take it from there.
I'll dive in. I've been thinking about this for months, and I'm new to the board. I joined the board in August, and been focusing on membership engagement. I think there are two themes I from my view. First is just this the process of bringing new members in. So we're kicking off a onboarding process. And so I'm the way you described it, on the podcast, it just felt, really methodical. And so to explain to others of how you go about, whether it's recruiting. I mean, the example I heard in the podcast, you saw someone, you'd invite them, but it's the process. Once you get them in, into the rides, what's that feel like? What's that look like as someone new? Because we have to train our ride leaders around that. So I feel that that's an opportunity for where we can improve our processes. So you get the name or the person's name and email or phone number or something in the follow-up as an example. I thought that would be great. I don't know, that may happen now, but I don't think it's consistent and uniform. So that's a spirit of inclusion. We also have talked about a bit of outreach to other clubs or to members of all kinds of communities here in the Bay Area. And we're a little bit stymied on that because of the pandemic. There are very few kind of organized rides where we can go. We don't have that many ride leaders, and just understandably from a safety viewpoint, and we're not really actively saying, hey, we need you to lead a ride because we don't have anyone next Thursday. We can't really do that just under the circumstances. So I think it's the spirit of bringing people in is, to me, the kind of primary area. But your thoughts while you're here on ways to recruit, would be really welcomed. That's my point of view. MJ, I don't know if you want to chime in as the club president here, if there's some other direction you want to go, or start off.
I can say a few things. I think the first thing is that we haven't really been very proactive about recruitment. This is maybe indicated by the fact that we have an interim membership chair and we haven't had anyone who's like an actual membership chair. But my goal is spearheading efforts to actually focus on membership and improve recruitment. I think another challenge, because I'm Filipino American, and if you look at our membership, it's not that many people of color, not that many young people, not that many women. And so I think, but the fact of the matter is the Bay Area is becoming, and the US in general, becoming more and more diverse. And we have a lot of young people as well, and we have a lot of women as well. So why aren't they riding bikes, and why aren't they riding bikes with GPC? I don't really know why that is, but I would love our club to better represent our community, which is much more diverse than our club right now.
Yeah.
I'd like to make mention of something as well. For the Oakland Yellow Jackets, we have a really good balance between genders, but age is proving to be a challenge. So I've struck out to reach out to our local advocacy group to try and make ourselves more visible by assisting with some of their education courses. And then there's a local ride that supports schools, and we've also tried to be, or I've reached out to be more visible there, but I haven't heard back. And the pandemic may be a reason, or they're such a well-oiled machine, they don't need our help. I don't know. But those are two avenues that we've looked at to try and broaden our base.
Yeah.
Could I mention what I think one of the problems is, and frankly, it's, I look at how I get interested in groups, and frankly, it's not by being recruited directly. It's by somehow seeing something about the group, or, sort of a side recruitment from a friend, essentially says, I've been hanging out with these guys and I enjoy them, and I think you might too. But, looking at it from the other side, I've never really been involved, frankly, in recruiting. It's sort of been self-selection type, things. And I would bet that that's probably the experience of most of the people in the club, which is why we have trouble getting started trying to do active recruiting.
Yeah, recruiting is you guys are in San Francisco, so Mary Ann, to your point, you truly have a bed of everyone in your area. And I'm not sure with the Yellow Jackets, what demographically where you're located, or geographically where you're located, but if you guys are in the Bay Area, you have the melting pot of everyone, and you have a million cyclists that are there. Like, that is the holy grail of hills, which Aaliyah happens to love very, very, very much. So you guys are in a melting pot. Oh, you're based out of Oakland. Okay, so you guys are like in a very hot spot area where you have hundreds of thousands of cyclists, and I'm pretty sure you're wondering, like, why are they not coming to ride with us? What are we doing wrong? I don't think it's a matter of what you guys are doing wrong. And Aaliyah, you can feel free to chime in, because this is totally your area too. I don't think it's anything that you guys are doing wrong, but you definitely have to start from within. Like, what's the structure that you already have in place, and possibly what kind of club do you guys want to be? Are you guys going to attract just social riders where you want to get together on the weekend, have a good time, kind of chill out a little bit? You're going to attract those people. But if you want to have like hard-hitting racers, you want to develop a race team, a youth development team, how are you going to gauge that audience?
Okay. I'm with the Yellow Jackets, and we ride once a week. I've been with the club for about 14 years. The demographics has really changed since when I just started. It was I would say 50% African American, and unfortunately the hardcore African American riders, they're getting up in age and we're losing them yearly. And now I estimate there's only like 10% African American, and we're trying to recruit the younger people. And like Felice says, we work with schools, and one of our biggest things we do is we advertise. Our kickoff ride is maybe April. We ride on Saturdays, mid-April, and we advertise and try to get a lot of people on an easy ride. And we have a picnic and trying to get them, interested in the club, and then continue. Hopefully, we can maintain those people. But like people mentioned, ride leaders are really important, and make sure they feel welcome whenever there's a new person coming in. I just make sure, I chat with them and make sure, there's someone there to give them a hand. Our club, it was an easygoing club. We have advanced group, intermediate, and maybe light or slower group, which, they come in with any, mountain bikes, hybrids, just starting out. And that's how we built a lot of, newer riders. But it seems like younger folks have other things on their mind. They're not really interested in spending, 4 or 5 hours, riding. But whenever we get a new person in, we definitely, especially a younger person, we ask them to making sure they enjoy themselves and then invite their friends. We're trying to expand our base, and it's really hard to do.
Yes, I can understand that. Aaliyah, did you want to chime in a little bit before I share the screen? And
I'm just absorbing what I'm hearing. It seems like you guys are trying to do some things. I just think I think maybe your ride leaders, like if you're telling me that, I mean, like, I think we should just go through the presentation and go from there. But what I'm saying is if your ride leaders are all of a certain age and if there's a big age gap there, that's something that you probably have to look critically at and how you're going to fix that. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. But I think that there are some pluses and minuses to that. Like, it is an instructional, it gives a room for instruction if you're trying to bring in new members who want to learn. But if you're trying to catch that group of kids that just wants to ride, that might not be as easy, if that makes sense, because the structure that you're imposing upon them is not as fun as just getting on a bike and riding. Does that make sense? I know it's hard to swallow. I've instructed youth, so like, believe me, I get it. But it's something to reflect on. It's just something to reflect on when you're planning your rides. If you have one trusted young person, like somebody in college, you need like a college kid if you're trying to get that young crowd. Just my opinion, mind you. But Erica, please take it away.
So just to give you guys a little bit of background about Aaliyah, she basically came into this world on 2 wheels. She literally, her father is one of the most legendary riders in Brooklyn, New York. He is one of the founding members of the Red Caps, and the Wall Street Journal has written an article about them. They are known in the infamous Prospect Park. They are probably where Aaliyah in their 70s at this point. These guys are still riding. They'll definitely go up to 120 miles an hour or 120 miles just because they're riding on a Saturday.
Yeah, they still do all our big rides. Like, they'll come out and do the Major Taylor rides, but they'll add another 10 miles on. They're one of those type of groups.
Yeah.
But they also have a similar issue with age. So that's why I'm kind of trying to give you the same advice that they seem to be taking. And I've noticed they're a closed group. So they're not actively recruiting, but they do bring in their kids and their kids' friends. And it seems like that's how they're sustaining, because otherwise they're mostly in their 70s.
Yeah. And she's in addition, she didn't, Michael mentioned early on, I'll just mention very quickly that she has an organization that she's founded called Ride Upgrades, and she works exclusively with the youth in New York City to get more kids on bikes, get them, kind of wrangle in that energy that we all know that they have. And she's done a phenomenal job of getting sponsorship from a number of different organizations and local bike shops to support the efforts. And so far, so good. If we have a season, I think it's going to go very, very well. So that's where she's coming from her perspective, and I'll share my screen now and just, we kind of skipped ahead a little bit, but what I will do is just kind of go get this going, and we will make it work here. And again, if you all have any questions, feel free to pop in at any given time. I'm totally okay with that. All right. Safe to assume everyone can see the screen?
Yep, it's up.
Yes.
I'm gonna say yeah. All right. So we are the Major Taylor Iron Riders, based out of New York City. Just to give you a really quick overview, as Michael had already mentioned, my name is Derek Andy Barnes. I'm the president of this wild bunch here in New York City, and Aaliyah Tice Barnwell is the recruitment director, and she also is the founder for an organization that's called rideupgrades.org. So thank you all for having us. So one of the things that we are named after is one of the man that we're named after is Major Taylor. I should say his name is Marshall Major Taylor. He was the first world African-American cyclist, world champion cyclist back in 1896, I believe. He did this insane race. It was 6 days around in what was then the Madison Square Garden. It's something that I don't think anyone would ever possibly compare to, would do now. It was actually, I think the closest thing we can compare it to would be the Tour de France, where they do 21 days of riding, whereas back in that day, they only did for 6 days, nonstop, 24 hours a day. He didn't win the race, but he definitely was a contender in the race. He went on to live a life. He wrote a book about himself, got world acclaim in Europe, I believe, and later, many years later, here in the U.S., he became to be this amazing cyclist that people didn't know anything about. So now he's like an unsung hero. And so far, I think we have over 50 clubs nationwide that are all under the umbrella of Major Taylor Association, and we work collectively together to make sure we uplift his name and do proud by the major. And the Iron Riders have been in existence since about 2006. And I currently have been presiding over the club for about 4 or 5 years now, which is crazy, but we're just going to keep going. Right. So just to break into a little bit of information here, a little bit more about how the Iron Riders came about. Historically, there is an organization that is called New York City Cycle Club. And how we came about was that there wasn't a place for us in some of the organizations and some of the biking clubs that were in New York City. So there was two sisters named, and Lily, I can't remember the name. It was Mildred and Lorraine, I believe. And they kind of created their own tour, if you will, tour bike club called the L&M Tour Cycling Club. And they just kind of grabbed up all of the black and brown people that were riding bikes back in the 70s. They came up with this club. We used to go on these amazing rides to Princeton, New Jersey, out to Montauk. And they kind of started picking up a little bit of steam. A young, spirited young man by the name of Mel Corbett came along, and he wanted to ride a little bit faster. He wanted to take the club to another notch. Hence, he created Major Taylor Iron Riders, and we've been in existence since 2006. And like I said, since then, we've had over 50 clubs nationwide. So I want to just touch on a little bit of a couple things that you guys had mentioned earlier on about, how do you do the recruitment process, how do you retain members? The goals, what's the end result? Like, Michael, you mentioned, and Richard, you also mentioned that you want to get new fresh blood in the club. You guys want to keep the club energized. You want to keep them going. But to Aaliyah's point, who's doing the recruiting? Do those young people or those other people, do they see someone like them in your club? 9 out of 10 times they don't. I mean, Mary Ann, you're a Filipino woman, you're a person of color as well. So I would, there's got to be, I would look in your community, see if there's other people that want to ride. You have probably a built-in community there in your own network circle. See if they want to come along. That's an option, or suggestions for that matter. Some of the things that kind of keep folks away and like separated from it is if they don't see someone that looks like them, or it could be a possibility of the actual expense. I'm sitting here looking at a lot of seasoned cyclists here, and we all know that cycling is not cheap at all. I mean, we can easily drop on a cheap end like $3,000 for a bike, but it could be the deterrent to keep people off of bikes as well. It's definitely an expensive hobby to have, and we all have spent a pretty good amount of money. I'm pretty certain of it. Let's see, some other things that would actually come to mind would be, where are you guys, where do you all ride? Who are you guys partnering up with? Any shops? Are there any youth community engagement programs that you guys could possibly get involved with? Is there a local school or educators in your organizations, in your clubs that partner up with schools? I know Leah's used that as one of her resources, and I'm pretty certain it's going to be a huge success in New York City because we have about 1 million kids. I'm sure there's a couple that would love to ride bikes that don't have access to it. That's a couple suggestions. Leah, do you have anything you want to chime in with?
I'm liking the clinics and the step up. So really it depends on, like, I think she said before, what kind of ride you're trying to get and what kind of riders you're trying to get, right? Like, um, around here we have several other large clubs. They don't necessarily leave the city. So when younger people or other riders are ready to make that next step, they're going to look to other people that look like them, and they're going to look for Major Taylor if they're trying to do longer rides. And to be quite frank, we wouldn't try to recruit somebody that wasn't ready to do that. So just keep that in mind. What I heard from the outside was that y'all like to climb a lot, and everybody doesn't like to do that. Everybody doesn't like to suffer. So it is something to keep in mind, and you have to find a way to pitch that and make that attractive. Maybe you're doing hill climb events, and maybe that's where you're luring at. If you really are looking for young, fresh blood that's like competitive, you're probably looking at doing events. And you can do those in a way that's COVID safe or something like that. And we can discuss that later. Group chats, if you're trying to bring people along. I mean, honestly, if you're starting from scratch, that's base outreach, then you're partnering with shops and you're doing rides. You're showing up at these other events. When you see riders on the road that don't have, the team kit or club kit, you're approaching them. That's like the first thing. That's the easiest thing, is to walk up and say hello. It seems like it's, roadies have this terrible reputation of maybe not being warm and sunny, and maybe we should try and be a little more warm and sunny. Sometimes it is just that simple. And in partnering with other clubs that exist. I hear that there's another club kind of in the Oakland area, the East Bay. Is that correct? Is there an East Bay club in the Yellow Jackets territory?
Yellow Jackets, yeah. Can't hear you, Alan.
I think she may be referring to our advocacy group, which is East Bay Cycle East Bay.
Okay, maybe that's what it is. So there are no other clubs kind of near you guys.
Well, there are quite a few in the Bay Area. So that was one of the strategies by aligning with some of the other clubs nearby, so we could join some rides and check out what's been going on and see if there are people who may be interested in, if we have joint events, to help bring people in. So that there are a number of clubs. Some are smaller, some are bigger, but just given the pandemic, there's just not a lot of group rides happening officially, if you know what I mean. People go out and do their own thing, but we official club rides are kind of scarce these days here.
Could I mention that in non-pandemic times, we have run a spring series and a fall series which are recruitment type things. We start out fairly simple. One of them runs to a very flat area, the Bay Area, as its first ride. And people can see the progression in it, and frankly, they tend to attract a lot of people, although again, not a lot of diversity, but we tend not to get a lot of permanent, when I say at least, we tend to get not a lot of memberships out of it. Although for all I know, most of our membership at this point may have been one, first got interested in the club through one of those rides.
Okay. I mean, the community outreach partnered up with a bike shop is probably the easiest and most effective way to just have a built-in base, especially if it's a popular bike store. If you guys host, and it could be something as small as maybe not even hosting a ride, because they're just gonna see, I don't know, like, oh, these are all these guys that are riding these bikes, but I don't see anyone that looks like me. If you're just hosting a serious thing, we're gonna do a bike clinic and then partner up with another, say, a bike advocacy program that's in the city, and say, hey, you guys are gonna sponsor this. We want you guys to come show these kids how to ride bikes. You guys are putting it on. Well, who are they? Well, we are, the Grizzly team, and this is what we do. And we have these rides. You guys should come out. We have a youth program. We want to get you guys better acclimated to the road. So if you take them under your wing, kind of lure them in with the fact that, we're going to bring you guys in. We've taught you how to ride bikes, or provide a bike clinic, if you will, or it could be an internship at a bike shop or something. And then you just take them out. This is how you do the gearing. This is how and just coach them along. And then before you know it, hey, I'm going to bring my friend along, and we're going to support you guys. There's a race that's happening. There's an event that's happening. You guys should go. And then you start to see the ball kind of rolling. But just like throwing out the fish line and grabbing them is where you have to find that hook, if you will. Does that make sense? I hope it does.
And these days, you might want to think about pods. In this way, you're probably dealing with like a small neighborhood contingent. You can get people that actually possibly know each other, have seen each other riding in the area before, and kind of like you're minimizing that risk. You're keeping your group rides small. That's kind of what the women's rides or that women's club is doing. Ostroy's team. So they have organized their members by neighborhood, and people are keeping the groups of 5. So something to think about there. Now you've got your own group and now if you're bringing on somebody, say you bring on somebody new, you probably want to, if there isn't one main person who can take on this responsibility, you kind of want to divvy up the responsibility of checking in on those new people after a ride. Because if somebody comes out and gets horribly beat up, they're going to say something nice to your face. They're always going to be like, oh yeah, it's fine, it's good. And then they limp away. And, you never see them again. Now you call them and check in on them, see if they're going to come back. These are the problems that we have. I'm not sure how brutal your rides are. There's people, used to be known for eating our young. We somehow turned that around. So I would suggest the check-ins if there's no like group chat that you're adding them to.
Sure. So diversity and inclusion. I know the most popular thing is focused on is, race, because you want to get more people of color, show some diversity in there, but it's not necessarily exclusive to just race. And I want to be clear about that it covers a whole gamut, and that could be the skill level. Like you guys are all seasoned cyclists. You guys can probably shoot up those 10% grade hills out there in San Francisco in the Bay Area with no problem. Whereas you're going to get a newbie that's going to come along, and if they're getting things above a 3%, their heart rate's shooting through the roof. So it's not just a matter of race that you guys want to diversify and be inclusive, but you want to be inclusive to those new riders that are coming along as well. So you could have the newbie with straight bars, knobby tires. They're going to die in the first couple rides. Nurture them. Make them, you know what? This is where you're starting. You have a bike. You're here. You're 50% of them are along the way. And as you develop that rider and show them about the gearing, what kind of bike they need, why their bike is 40 pounds as opposed to 17 or 12. They're going to want to come along. They feel support. They feel that extension that somebody's looking out for them. They're going to come back. They're going to ask you, where can I get a better bike? And before you know it, you got them hooked. It's just making space for them. So again, not just based on race, it's inclusive of age. I think one of the ladies here on the call mentioned that she wants to get more people of an age group out of it in her organization, the Yellow Jackets, I believe. But it's also sexual orientation. Some people just want to ride with each other, but there's a whole lot of different folks out there. The cisgender, the transgenders, the gays, the bisexuals, the whole nine. They just want to ride a bike. I don't care what you like. You want to ride a bike? Come ride with me. Period. So it's not exclusive to just race. Again, race and age. You have young people, older people, middle-aged people, super seasoned, not so seasoned. You got the whole gamut. But the thing is that when they show up, that you want to make sure that they have support when they get there. That is truly the most clutch thing out of all of this. Like, I'm pretty sure all of us have shown up on a ride and you get there and someone, good morning. And that's the last words you've heard. You haven't heard his words since, are you okay? Are you eating? Do you have nutrition? What's in your bottle? Did you sleep last night? Did you stretch? What's the longest ride? Do you have bike handling skills? Like you need to engage with those people to see where they are when they show up. Michael, you look like you got something you want to say. You're bursting at the seams.
I was totally agreeing, and I think that it's such an important point. In one of your podcasts, it's someone on your board said it's so important. It's not maybe what you did as much as how you made someone feel. And that is so true. So when someone comes away from a ride, it's all those little things, like you said, how'd you sleep? Did you stretch? What you got in your bottle? But you're showing that you have their back. You are encouraging, cultivating, new members. And that just is so important. And from my experience, it's rare because people show up, oh yeah, they see their old friends. And if you're new, and like me, an introvert, then you are kind of left out and no one gives it back, or a few people do, but and I feel we have to go like bend over, like really take the deliberate step to build up to ride leaders consistently across having that kind of attitude, nurturing attitude. So thank you, Derica, but that I'm in total agreement. I think it's important for us.
It's absolutely clutch. Like Michael, you mentioned you were an introvert. My husband,
Yeah.
he's a diehard introvert. Like that's his space. He doesn't speak. He just shows up. He rides. That's it. And he's been riding for this club since about 2008. And I couldn't, before I got there, no one had no idea what he did for a living. Some people just knew him as that guy. But he's a phenomenal cyclist. And for him, introverts are people just the new person on the scene. Like you want to know that people know that you're there. Like I'm here, I've shown up. It's already bad enough that I don't know anyone, but you have to include them. Like, hey, good morning. How long have you been riding? Just small talk. That's all it takes is small talk and not leaving them behind. I would definitely say that. Don't leave them back there. It's clutch. So, getting to the root of the problem, like, Michael and I were just talking about, there's a couple of things like, take a step back. And when I say that, it's like, take a step back and reassess what you're doing. Take a step back and say, why we're not getting any new people. Like, how can we do a pivot? It's not a complete overhaul. You just need to pivot because you guys have hundreds of thousands of cyclists that are right there in your backyard. They're there. You just need to connect with them. And it's not difficult. It's just basically almost like Leah said, it's simple. Hey, who do you ride with? You want to come ride with us? I see you're not with the team. You like climbing hills? You want to ride in the Bay Area? Yellow Jackets, you ever heard of us? We got rides going every week, every Saturday, every Sunday. Come check us out. People want to ride. And when they get there, make them feel like, hey, you extended the invite. Now that I'm here, keep me included, keep me engaged. Let's go. Right? So the spaces, as I mentioned, like you want to create an intentional space for people, newbies, especially newbies, because they're already freaked out with the showing up with everyone looking extremely sharp in these fancy kits and these pricey bikes and the helmet matches the shoes and the laces matches the bar tape. And you guys have seen it. You guys are probably those folks that look incredibly scary and you got these glasses on and you don't know what's about to happen. You don't know where you're going. You got the phone number. Is there an Uber that can come pick me up? Make space for them, make space for them. Say, listen, have a sweeper. Like new people always need a sweeper. They have someone riding beside them, basically wiping the tears from their face because they're freaked out. And sometimes it comes to that because we've wiped some tears on the Iron Rider rides. They just need to know that they're not out there alone. And if you just have that one person just to sweep them and carry them, and it has happened, we have to physically push them up the hill, they're going to come back. Because you know what? They didn't forget about me. I showed up. I died, but I'm going to go back for some more. That's it. Sometimes that's all it takes. And you may have to feed them occasionally because newbies don't show up with food a lot. You want to get more, you want to have people in your club, in your organizations that are going to bring a different perspective. Like Richard, I'm not sure what your nationality is. Like Mary Jane mentioned that she's a Filipino, so I know she brings a different perspective than say Alan or Michael would, because she comes from a different part of the world. She has a different background, culture. She's going to bring a different perspective. She's at the table. Who else can you guys put at the table in those positions so they can do recruitment outreach, possibly being your social media? Because we all know that the millennials are. The internet flows through their bloodlines. Like they are internet savvy kids. They can get it together hands down. And that's also another place where you can elevate your visibility is on social media. I didn't know anything about Instagram. I can tell Lee. I called her. I said, can you just do this part? Because I don't speak Instagram speak. Like I don't know what they do there. It's just photos. I got more involved in it and it's just taken off to a whole nother world. But that's where you guys can really put out your name and say who you are, show who you are, and let people find out about what's going on in your organization. Social media is absolutely clutch. Another thing is just listen. I know that even in the Iron Riders, we have a set group of guys that they've been doing it this way for 30 years. And why would I change? And what would I not, why would I bother changing essentially? But the one thing when I took their position is that I knew they were willing to listen, even though they're kind of set in their ways, they're definitely set in their ways. At least they were willing to listen and be led because they knew they wanted the club to grow. So that was the most important thing when I took their position, they were willing to listen, within reason. Some of the things don't go over so well, but I still keep trying. Being open, you guys are like an amazing group of folks. You can definitely open to new changes, and that may be a complete overhaul of what you guys are doing, or maybe sitting down and having a hard discussion as to what kind of club you want to be. What do you want to recruit? And how do you guys want to grow? What do you want to attract? That's really, really important when you guys are doing your recruiting because you need to know who is your target audience? Like Richard, you mentioned that you guys ride once a week. You just need to find a couple occasional riders to come on board. Like, listen, we just need you on Sundays. Come out, do a couple miles, see you next week. That's it. You're not going to get those young kids that are doing those BMX crazy turns and flips on their bikes, because if they want to go ride midnight, 3 in the morning, God help them, and that's not your target audience. You want to find somebody that just wants to be engaged a little bit, want to come ride, have a little coffee afterwards, hit the road. And I think you may have a better success of finding a whole bunch of riders. And just say, this is what we do, this is what we're doing, call it a day. And another good point is that even I know a lot of clubs are doing this now in light of everything, the social climate that's happening, is that they're starting to engage a little bit more beyond their own bubbles. Meaning, it's not just about recruiting, but you guys also want to support those that don't have access to what we already do. Like, we can go to a bike shop and drop a couple thousand on the bike, and we can spend a couple $100 on some shoes, but how are you reaching back into other communities that may not have that opportunity? And that's where we can get that youth engagement. Like, listen, we're going to do a series at a bike shop. We know a lot of kids come to, I don't know, the San Francisco Bay Area bike shop. Tons of kids run in and out of there all the time. You guys are going to host a series on a bike clinic, how to maintain your bike. Like, everybody needs to know how to take care of the bike. That's an idea. I know Aaliyah probably has tons of ideas. Are you still there? Is she muted?
Yeah, I'm muted. I'm here though.
Oh, okay.
You're listening. Yeah, I'm here.
All right.
You're spot on.
Okay. You got any feedback here?
I think you're covering it well. I mean, this is, I don't want to say it's not rocket science, but it's not rocket science, right? Like, you guys already know, it is harder. I think somebody asked in the chat what you can do during COVID, considering the COVID precautions. Some of these things are not COVID safe, right? Or you have to do some modifications there. That might be a particular question. These are the specifics of what you do are probably going to have to be between you and the boards, because you're different. You're in different locations and you have different targets, right? A little bit, seems like. And probably there's a little bit of leeway on what things your board's comfortable with you doing. Like, I could suggest doing an alley cat and you'll probably get a bunch of young people tomorrow, but is your board comfortable doing that and ensuring that? I don't know. So, things to think about.
Sure.
These are good we're just giving you like the principles to think about when you're moving forward, and yes, some techniques, but ultimately you'll have to make the calls on what in particular to do yourselves and how and what order in which to do it.
And the pandemic is, oh, sorry, go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, I was going to go with the pandemic. I mean, frankly, looking at timelines, looking at the way the culture, works in our area and things, frankly, I think nothing is really going to be happening in terms of being able to get people really together until late fall at the earliest, which sort of kills cycling. Well, we can plan.
Yes.
We can plan for next year. And we can germinating the ideas and perhaps doing some small scale experiments. But
I couldn't agree more.
Frankly, this year we're still sort of in hibernation and planning mode.
I think I was just going to make that point, that even though the pandemic kind of leveled everyone's season last year, completely leveled it, I took full advantage of doing the branding of the Iron Riders. I took full advantage of so many things I was able to accomplish last year with the planning and connecting with different sponsors and different organizations and just laying down a great foundation, like solidifying a little bit more. I took full advantage of it, and I said, now if we happen to have a season 2021, I'm ready. Even if we don't, I've set it up for 2021 or 2022 to say, listen, can't blame us for that. That didn't happen, but we're ready to go for 2022. And so you guys are in a great position in terms of rebooting, planning, rebranding, making connection with bike shops or making connection with some of the local schools if they just have 5 kids. If you guys know a bike shop that has 5 bikes, say, listen, we want to do a bike clinic for these kids to show them how to ride bikes, or you just want to do like a, weekend camp, so to speak, like a day camp, something on the weekends. We can have some young folks come out, partner up with a local bike advocacy organization, see if they have helmets, if they have bikes, if they have, instructors that take on 5 kids. Test it out. You guys have a great opportunity to do that this year, just to test it out and see what it's like.
That is a great way to give back, but that's probably not going to get you members. If you're talking about getting paid members, you're probably looking at like partnering with local businesses to do similar things, because you need adults. Kids don't join. Yeah, like those work for my programs, working with kids. But if you're trying to get adults to come out on rides with you, they're going to become paying members. They're bike shops. They're looking at bike shops, and they're looking at any big businesses, big, I don't know what they've got going on out there. Any big new developments that are kind of luxury, where you have people that kind of, I hate to say this, but disposable income. These are, it's unfortunate, but if you're looking for members, that's a different discussion. If you're trying to like build equity and create space for people, those are 2 different tacks. Does that make sense? Okay.
Good point.
Because I don't want you to like, you're probably not going to get the kids, you know, you're not going to get like a child to join your club. So that might not help you. But as far as like, you're trying to hit that college age, and I got to be brutally honest, people are riding bikes. So it is a question of whether or not you want to take that risk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You know, I had a question, you know, Lee, I was thinking about that, kind of creating like a farm system to bring up riders, and we have to be strategic since we don't have that, you know, many people to do the outreach. We have to be really thoughtful about that. I think. Let me ask a question though. We're getting toward the end of the hour, and I want to open it up for questions. And I wanted to ask one. A key piece of what I'm hearing, you know, involves the ride leaders, you know, being really deliberate, inclusive, and cultivating relationships there, you know, among new riders. And I was curious to see how you approach, Major Taylor approaches like training the ride leaders, because I imagine ride leaders, you know, there's an incumbent group, you know, of people who say, I've been doing this for X number of years, and that's, you know, and I keep getting people coming back. It's not a big deal. And I'm anticipating, you know, if we start saying, hey, we need phone numbers or email addresses so we can do some follow-up, and there may be some resistance on that. And I was just wondering what your experience is, and maybe ride leaders are totally good with it and, you know, they're ready to go with the new program. But interested in your perspective, because you have to be really, you are really mindful and methodical.
Yeah, it happened actually organically. I didn't really put much thought into this is my plan. It literally happened organically when I would have new riders that would come out. I would, you know, we're known for, we were a hard riding club. Like there's no mistaking about that. Like we can get up to speeds of 25 plus miles an hour, and we're blazing the trails. We keep up, fantastic. So that is a draw for people to come out with us. But I would also know that I couldn't do it when I came on initially. But what made me want to come back is that there was 2 people that sent me emails and said, hey, listen, we saw you take a beating out there. If you want to come out during the week, let me know and I'll take you out. Because I was, when I say I was off the back, like these guys were already at the end of the rest stop already, and they had ordered their lunch, and I was just pulling in. So it was a death march, but at least they reached out. And then after that, they kept contacting me saying, do you want to go out again? We saw that you did, you know, I noticed that your gearing got a little bit better. I said, what do you have in your body? They were coaching me along the way because I wanted to get better, but they saw that, and they also want to say, you got to come back because you want to do this. And so that definitely makes a difference in who's showing up, because if they don't want to come, you won't see them again. But if they know they're going to have support when they get there, that's going to make a difference. And so when I took this position, I said, you know, let me just reach out to this guy, because he, you know, he kind of died off the back a little bit. And I would just say, hey, listen, you know, I know it was a rough ride. You know, how did you feel about it? Do you want to come back? Or where do you think did you learn anything from the person who was riding with you? And they would say, like, I learned about the gearing or nutrition, or I bumped or whatever. And I would send them information, then connect them with someone in regards to whatever questions they had. You know, I don't know, I live in Westchester, who can I ride with? Let me contact you, put you in touch with so-and-so. So it's just bringing them into the fold and let them know that I got your back. That's kind of what it is. Yep, you're muted. You're muted, Michael.
Yeah, sorry, I muted myself. We have to do some training. You know, it's a mind shift, you know, that the riders really have to take it on and do that follow-up and encouragement. And and find the right level, like, so the conversation could be in Derica, we have a Tuesday group, not the Saturday group. Once you start killing it on that, you come back, but just cultivating that interest, and then, you work your way up, and
Yeah.
you got it.
Yeah, you really do.
I mean, I was thinking
I'll
about
just-
this for our new member onboarding and just trying to think about like finding people. MJ and I have talked about finding someone who's kind of a mentor or a buddy, so they go about the same pace, look out for each
Yes.
other, something like that.
And you may not even need to assign a buddy. You may just need to have just designate a sweeper. Like I'll ask, my husband is an amazing sweeper. He's pushed half the club up a hill or two in his time. But I'm just like, listen, can you sweep on the way there? And I'll grab someone on the way back. Like, can you sweep on the way back? And 9 out of 10 times, you're going to find somebody that does not want to ride hard that day. And they're going to take that because they want to nurture, and you have to make sure they can actually give guidance and educate the riders as they go along.
Okay, good. Here, I'll let you work towards wrapping up.
Okay, yeah, so let me wrap it up. I see we got a few minutes, and I want to be conscious of everyone's time. So this is just a quote. There's been a lot of articles that have been published this last year in terms of diversity and inclusion, and some of them had like really good points about how to include people, how to, make space for everyone, and people just want to ride their bikes, period. That's it. Besides, somebody has a like-minded interest, that's half the battle. You showed up, come ride, I got your back, we're good to go. Like Leah said, it's not rocket science, it's pretty straightforward, but be strategic in who you're recruiting. I know we can't recruit anybody the likes of Justin Williams. He's totally out of that range. That's a professional guy. I'm not going for that guy. I'm going for the guy that wants to come out, ride with the group really fast, and has great skills. That's who we're targeting. So just a couple things, like some links if you guys didn't, I know Michael, I mentioned a couple things about Leah having her article, and she's also been published in the VeloNews.com. I'm happy to share this with Michael after the presentation is over with.
Please.
But it's really been last year. Like I said, I took advantage of the downtime, and I think you guys are in an amazing same position as well, where you can reboot, replan, restructure, reformat.
Yeah. Oh, great. And Derek, I'll be sure to post this on our website or share with the membership.
Okay.
And the folks from the other clubs, please reach out and we'll be sure you get, copy too.
All right. Absolutely. Does anybody have any questions or anything?
Yeah. Let's open it up for questions.
And I don't care what they are. Feel free.
Please, can you talk
Jared
more
just had a question about
how you acquired sponsors?
I'll be honest with you and say that when we did the first podcast with Velo News, that catapulted our club into another level. And from since then, it snowballed into, I'll be honest, it was also the right time. It was a perfect timing because everyone was at home. The BLM movement was at its height. And we were such a well-known club in New York by the editor of Velo News because he has written with us when he lived in New York City. And he thought I would just reach out to him and see if you guys want to talk about what's going on. And it just snowballed, and the emails were coming like a lot. They were a lot. And I figured, why not strike while the iron is hot? And I talked to some of the founding members of the club, and I said, listen, did you guys ever have any ideas about where you want the club to go? They gave me some ideas. I just ran with it. I literally ran with it.
Okay. Hey, Derek, there was a question in the chat about is there going to be, or is there a Major Taylor chapter in the Bay Area? I know there's several in Southern California and Houston, Chicago, but is there one happening here in the Bay Area? Are you aware of that?
I don't know of one. Actually, I did make some calls to some of the leaders to find out if there was one. They haven't started one there, actually. They have not. But I see Dan is one step ahead of the game. That jersey.
I know, he has that shirt. I know.
Erica, and Michael, I can say that one of our new members, her name is Kelly Scott. She's expressed interest in starting a Major Taylor club here locally. I don't know to what extent she's making progress, but I'm looking forward to hearing more about it. And I'll just add a quick note of thanks for Derica for laying out in your podcast and reinforcing those topics today, how to be more inclusive and grow diversity and strengthen your club and make it a better place. We are following your steps, and I hope we can catch up at some point with the good work that you've done in New York.
Thank you so much. Dan, I have spoken to Kelly. She's been in contact with me and some of the leaders here in the Northeastern region, and we're definitely going to get her up and running. So there may be a club coming there soon.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, good, good. And it just said Meredith just sent in saying she has a Facebook page. So for those interested, check it out.
For sure.
Good. Other questions folks have in the remaining minutes, remaining time?
Aaliyah, did you have anything you want to chime in with?
No, I think they're in a good place. I mean, it's hard because COVID. You know what I mean? Ultimately, everything kind of like puts a little damper on it. So I think that this is a good time to just reflect and maybe talk things over with the board, and certainly give them a lot to think about. Yeah, I do want to kind of call attention to, oh gosh, what are those two big clubs? Over here, we had Good Bike Co. and the Australia Women's Team that kind of sprang up during COVID. So there are people riding. It's because I feel like people are unmoored. They have nothing, or they've just started riding and they're not, they don't have anything else to do. So something to think about of ways of doing this just COVID safely, because there are people that do want to join you.
For sure.
All right. Well, this is great. I have one little brief item here. We do a survey of like how the event make you feel, and would you recommend, the speaker events to others? So I'm going to send out the link to everyone, and I know this has been awesome. So I trust the feedback will be super. We have a bike skills class or event next Thursday evening, just to put it out there. And otherwise, I really want to thank Aaliyah and Derica for your time today. You guys are super busy. And we, as Dan said, I hope we can follow in your all footsteps and bike tracks down the road a year from now. I hope things look differently and feel differently in our club. And we'll be tracking what you guys are up to, because you're certainly the leaders.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, really great. Thanks again.
You're welcome. Feel free to reach out with any other questions or anything, Michael. I'm here to support you guys.
Fantastic. I love it. Thank you. All right, well, I think that's about it for today. Thank you all for joining, and we'll post the recording on our YouTube channel. So if you want to share it with others, that'd be awesome. All right. Well, Jen, Aaliyah, thank you again. Have a great evening. Everyone have a great rest of your afternoon. Take care. Thank you.